Look at our six-way tie for first. And welcome back a Sage Advisor until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champions Select. You may have noticed Crumbs is back. We missed you last week, my friend. Where were you?
I was in China. I was representing the LCS in the retired pro player tournament.
How'd you guys do?
We got 4th place.
4th? That's pretty solid. How many teams?
There are 4 teams.
Oh. Okay. Well, let's get a look at what games have potential to disrupt the standings today. Game 1 and 2 knock out at least 2 of the teams competing for first, as TL face Golden Guardians and TSM challenge Optic Gaming. C9 aims to hold on to first, opposite 100 Thieves, with CLG doing the same versus FlyQuest in Game 4. Ahead of today's matches, though, we have a host of roster swaps that could heavily swing how the standings shake out.
Yep, starting out with the mid laner for Optic Gaming. Crown is actually out. It's been reported that he's sick, I believe, and they tend to bring him back for week 5, but for now, they're going to have to make do with Scarlet.
He's not too sick, though. He was playing in Academy yesterday, doing all right, so I think that Optic Gaming, like Keaton is saying here, making sure that he gets the extreme rest that he needs so that he's in prime shape. Because Optic Gaming is definitely a contender for first place right now that no one saw coming.
It's just unfortunate that happens now during this gauntlet where we're trying to measure them against the other top teams in the league, and they don't get to put their best foot forward during this time.
Yep, without a doubt. But that is only one of the many roster changes that is coming through in week 4 here. We have as well for TSM Acadian slotting back in. For Cloud9, Blabber in as well, at least here on day 1. Wadid in for FlyQuest, and then Echo Fox still looking to find the right 5 with Lorlo and Panda slotting in.
I'm really surprised with the Echo Fox move. Yesterday, Echo Fox claimed a victory in the Academy series, but it wasn't off of Lorlo and Panda. It was from the bottom lane. Actually, Lost and Phil doing a really good job, and so slotting these 2 members in, I'm kind of curious what Echo Fox is thinking, because we were thinking that Solo was a really good player on this team.
Yeah, I felt like he was kind of the shining light for them, and he's down off there, and I mean, Rush, while not been fantastic, has been better than what we saw at a Panda last split. The other 3, pretty expected. I think, you know, junglers being swapped around from 2 teams. We've seen that before. Wadid was brought over in the offseason, so we are always expecting to see him at some point. Finally getting a chance now. Optics 1 and 5. FlyQuest is 1 and 5, so no surprise to see him. Yeah, that Echo Fox one kind of comes out of left field.
Yeah, Visa came through for Wadid. I know that was a lot of what they were waiting on there, so it'll be interesting to see how he slots in with that struggling FlyQuest roster, as they're still looking to put up some wins and you know, a performance similar to what they had in spring.
Yeah, I think everyone's a little disappointed because this was one of the rosters that had the most stability in it. You know, they brought in one guy who was maybe going to get some reps, and suddenly they've dropped all the way from 4th to last. It's shocking.
All right, well, Captain Flowers and Kobe will be bringing you Game 1 in just about 26 minutes, so let's get their thoughts ahead of the first place match.
Thank you very much, Dash. We are excited to be bringing you this battle here for first, where we have had 2 supports outshining the rest here so far in this league.
Yeah, Ole has been given the Spring Split MVP, Core JJ, a run for his money. They have both had outstanding performances starting in summer, and very similar, actually. Now, the only questions have been surrounding Ole and the Tom Kench pick. You know, with 9-12 now live for the LCS, there are some Kench bans. They're targeted at top lane, but also the last game that they played, Kench was banned away. They're starting to target Ole and lower the champion pool. We'll see if they have similar results here, because as Team Liquid ramp up, it's up to Ole to put Doublelift in check, his old bot lane partner with the new bot lane partner, and he's got some work to take care of.
Well, I mean, on Golden Guardians, we've seen Froggen sort of step up so far this split for this team and start playing champions. And originally people were like, oh, I don't see Froggen playing that. Now it's Ole's turn to step up there, start playing some more outside of the Tom Kench wheelhouse, see if maybe that's the recipe for success here for this team. But that's what we're looking towards here ahead of Game 1. Until then, back to you guys.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll dive deeper into the new patch later on in Countdown. But as of right now, when it came to his first place battle for the very first time, Coach Jimmy has confidence that the team's pocket picks give him an edge.
We're really working on our fundamentals. We're also looking at our flexibility when we go into best of 5s. I think that we're a team that's pretty confident in best of 1s because we do have a different champ pool than a lot of the other teams. But we know that when it gets to those best of series, we need to show a lot more. And this was a weakness we had last split that we're focusing on. I think that it's kind of subjective based on your strategy or how you look at it. We're drawing a lot of bans that are common across the globe for what people see as OPs. And then we also have our own pocket picks that people are worried about, right? Like whether it's Froggen's Anivia or it's Chusong's TK. It just forces teams to have to think about these picks that they probably don't get a lot of practice against. So in our view, we just think we're pretty flexible, and it's okay if other people think we aren't. For me, I think it's been really fun. Switching over from two-way player coach to head coach allowed me to kind of shape the team how I wanted it to be. I think my relationship with the players, it's also different because there's much more responsibility and there's a lot more that I have to be held accountable for decisions I'm making. And luckily, I have a great group of guys that I can work with, and also my support staff makes my job pretty easy.
I think the most interesting for me was talking about the pick-ban problems that you face when you go up against Golden Guardians, because they seem to play the meta and they seem to have specific champions. And sometimes even though you don't think they're going to play the meta things, you still just ban it out of fear because they're so strong. I know back in the day, Jungle Nidalee was this thing that was absolutely broken, but not everyone played it very well. It was very hard to do, but because it was so strong, people just banned it and were like, we don't want to play into it when, are they really going to play the Aurelia that well? We saw them get handed it last time that they struggled. So I think that's a really unique situation when playing versus Golden Guardians.
I like what he was saying about taking more accountability as a coach. I mean, the environment you have between players and coaches should be one where every single member is held accountable for what they do. A draft goes wrong, my bad, says the coach. A pick is something that they prepped incorrectly, my bad should go to the coach. And so I think that Jimmy has the right attitude here when it comes to Golden Guardians, a team that relies so much on these crazy picks. As long as he can always take the blame and say, you know what, this was my bad, guys, the team is going to do well.
We'll see how he does in that battle for first place against our defending Spring Split champions in Team Liquid. As we continue to celebrate Pride Month, though, if this LCS Pride pin caught your eye and you want to show your support, order yours at lcsmerch.com. Proceeds go to the Trevor Project, so pick yours up today. Stick around. More LCS Countdown when we return. Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where we're narrowing in on Game 1 of the day. Let's get a reminder, though, of where the teams stand as we take a look at the standings. Currently, Clutch Gaming sit at 3-3 above the three-way tie for 8th, and those 4 teams are the only squads not sitting at 4-2. So some definite packs of teams within these standings, but our top 6 are ultimately competing for a spot in the title match at the Little Caesars Arena as we look at the road to Detroit presented by Rocket Mortgage. Currently, top 6 has Cloud9, Counterlogic Gaming, Golden Guardians, Optic Gaming, Team Liquid, and TSM. If we assume the status quo of TSM, TL, and C9 all returning to finals weekend, which of the remaining teams is going to make it out of that top 6 and towards Detroit?
I think, so what you're basically asking is who's going to win a quarterfinal match?
Yes.
Because there's a first place and a second, third, fourth match as well. And so it's really about, at the time that we get to quarterfinals, who do you think will win against one of these other teams?
I think Optic. I like Optic right now. I love the fact that they went 4-0 at the first 2 weeks, and now this team is finally understanding where Meteos and Crown fit into the equation. But to top things off, the bottom lane. Arrow and Big have been coming in clutch, and Dokla finally has a good role with a solid champion pool that makes sense. Putting him on the Poppy, put him on the tankier champions in the top lane, and I know that the meta is continuing to shift top lane, which is just going to favor him more as it's shifting away from these hyper carry flex picks into more pseudo-sustain, pseudo-tank bruiser. So I think that Optic is in a really good place right now, especially with the patch changes that are coming through.
The problem I have with Optic is kind of the ceiling question that sometimes crops up. I think they have a really strong core in Crown and Meteos, but then I think Dokla at times has been a liability for the team if he can't get his exact meta champions that he performs on. Bot lane is inconsistent. I'm looking more at CLG because they're a team that, while they are also inconsistent, there's no one who's always a problem. Whereas I feel like Dokla is always someone you're accounting for and having to prop up so he doesn't let you down. CLG has multiple members who can all step up and carry at different times, even if they also sometimes struggle. And looking forward towards the postseason, it's a lot easier for me to see a team fixing consistency problems than leveling up a player like Dokla. I think when you have a bunch of skill and it's all about getting on the same page, that's easier to accomplish than leveling up skill.
I actually disagree. I would rather have one player to be like, okay, this is the area that we have to fix. Maybe we can mitigate it with some more creative picks or a little bit of tension, as opposed to some whack-a-mole game of like, this is the problem here, this is the problem here. Now every single time where you go, it's just one different area. So at least it's easier to address the issue that way.
Right. I mean, like, you never have a problem with Meteos and Crown on Optic, so you never need to worry about fixing that part.
Yeah.
It's all about fixing the top side. So it's more targeted, but I still think it's a harder fix long term, because if you do fix this whack-a-mole problem, I think they'll be better for it than in Optic.
All right, you could argue that in a situation where a player is a weakness, you're a little bit more reliant on the way the meta services that player at any given time. If things just, if all of a sudden becomes a top lane carry meta, oh no, the weakness being my top laner is not ideal for my team from a synergistic standpoint. It doesn't really matter what the meta is if we can actually fix those synergy issues.
Yeah, it's more about shot calling, like you can say, getting people on the same page. I think it's really hard during a season for someone to get substantially better. It feels like those are the kinds of things that happen, like when you can super grind solo queue or something like that.
Neither of you, though, seem to be too hot on the Golden Guardians when it comes to that top 6 and making it to finals weekend. Why is that?
Golden Guardians are weird because they do get away with so many crazy picks, and yet when they don't get those crazy picks, when they have to resort back to normality, suddenly the clock strikes midnight and we're like, oh, it's just a team, right? It seems like they need to level up to have punching power when they're not reliant on these oddball picks. And so with the meta evolving right now, teams are drafting in a way that makes it very confusing for you to know what role is going where, which makes it harder for you to go into these clutch picks. And so they figured out already, yes, Nivea and Froggen and Lux are great, but then you also have Tamkench on Olay that's getting a lot of bans. So I would really need to see this team step it up beyond just surprise picks to go further.
I think they have a good chance. I do think it's a really close race, but I kind of agree with Crumbs here where you're kind of waiting for this other foot to drop a little bit where, like, we've seen contracts be great in the past, but we've also seen him struggle a lot. We know Ole can be one of the best supports in the league, but we've also seen him struggle a lot. And they all seem to be working right now. And there's this hesitation where, like, so when's the pendulum going to kind of swing back and you can't get the Tom Kench, and the meta doesn't favor Ole and stuff like that. So they look really good. I think it's more of a feeling than a specific, like, problem.
Well, that's a good look at our top 6 teams. We'll be checking back in on the road to Detroit as the split continues, but for now, we're taking a break. As we go, let's listen in on this week's mic check, which followed the back-and-forth clash between Cloud9 and TSM.
Hey, we're gonna get fined, by the way.
I'm sorry.
You little weasel.
How am I, Andy?
You're fine to me.
If you could turn
BB?
on the coach for me, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good, coach. No, I'm
Copy
good.
that, coach. Copy that.
You hearing me, my volume is good, BB.
You're so loud.
I guess we were told to get in the lobby, but they took an extra 2 minutes. It's fine.
No, they're waiting for me. They're waiting for C9 to get ready.
Oh, okay.
Like, TSM always waits for C9 to get ready, you know?
Yeah, I guess.
We never wait for them.
The John.
Look. Yeah.
John.
Well.
I can dive top on the wave.
Fighting. Yasuo's going bot side now. They see John top side. One top.
Oh, he got him.
Nice.
Yeah,
no flash this guy. No flash.
Okay. Take over.
I'm Q3. No, we're killing Aurelia.
Okay,
Salas. I'm running up. I'm TPing. We have to get Silas, guys.
Sever on top.
Go this guy.
Yeah, look at the burst.
Yeah.
I'll be here in 5 seconds.
Verse.
Win these.
Gragas. Yeah. Nice. I'm no flash, I think.
Ian 3. He's slowed. 2.
Nice.
Let me get it.
Nice job.
I'm pushing mid.
I held.
Calm. I can ulti him. You can ulti him, maybe.
Okay. I'm TPing.
Watch for turn.
The TP, get it.
I'm TPing. Oh, shit.
It's fine.
I'm gonna flash instantly. It's full commit.
Oh, never mind.
Okay.
We didn't fight here.
Oh. They missed. I got
Siver.
Look, Siver has stopwatch.
They should be dead. Let's go, guys.
Look, maybe we can win.
Up to you guys. I can't do anything.
Oh,
Kill the
maybe.
them.
Oh, nice.
Back out.
They shouldn't have blue up
Let's go to
here.
Baron. Let's go to
Going.
Baron.
I'm pretty late. Yo, I'm ulti Yasuo. I got I'm really cute.
I'm on Gragas. I'm marking Gragas on the side.
Versus out on fight.
Yeah, I'm fighting Silas on side.
Silas tag.
Oh,
Siver has G. We win this.
Yeah.
Look, Gragas.
Nice.
Play Jasper, okay?
No flash. Oh, he has flash.
He has Versal.
I can stun him, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Nice.
Look. Go mid.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man.
Yes, guys.
That's what I like to see, man.
Hard game, but that's a dub.
Playing against Liquid, it's like David and Goliath, especially for me since last year I was literally David at 10th place. They're like back-to-back 3-time champions now. You really want to beat them just to prove like, hey, we can beat TL.
They're like on the rise. Like basically they started as the worst team in LCS and ever since then it's just been like up and up.
Ever since I started playing League of Legends, I've really looked up to Doublelift. I think I've modeled my play a lot after his, especially since I got to play against him so early on in my career.
So even in his first split, I thought definitely was pretty good. in laning phase, he's probably the AD carry that puts out the most pressure, other than me. And I respect that because playing aggressively in lane means that you're not afraid to die and you're not afraid to take risks.
Adrenaline rush. If he catches an axe to keep himself alive, that's going to be a kill on Aphromoo. This should be a kill and amazing if he can keep under the turret. Baby, that's the double kill.
Over the past split or so, I've realized, hey, I can do just as well as he can, or I can do even better. I want to prove that, and going into our match, I'm not going to be thinking of him as my idol or someone I just look up to, but rather a stepping stone for myself. And ready to show what we got and have a shot at the best.
Welcome back to LCS Countdown. Getting close to that Game 1 time as TL and Golden Guardians prepare to square off. But going into our battles for first place, pros will be competing on patch 9.12, which sees power picks changed and an overall shift towards certain enchanters.
And this is the buff that no one asked for, but we still got it. It hurts. Karma got buffed majorly, so her unempowered Q now does a 10% increase in the slow, and her shield duration of speed now matches the duration of the shield. So before, the shield lasted longer than the speed boost. Now they match the exact same. And if that wasn't enough, it now costs less mana. So Karma is pretty much everywhere now. Permaban, you gotta pick it. And the worst criminal of them all, Karma Tank Top.
Oh boy.
Oh, Chakra is special. That's obviously a pretty big addition to the meta. One thing we'll see probably leaving is the Sylas. He got nerfed really, really hard, and in particular, his wave clear. His passive AoE has dropped significantly. It does 70% less damage to minions. His Q as well doesn't quite do as much. His E shield was taken off the first little hop and put to the second where you actually need to land the chains to get it. So it's a little less useful for surviving ganks because you actually need to use it aggressively. So overall, he is just worse at roaming, which is super important in competitive play, less importance in mid priority, and just slightly less safe overall. So probably not going to see him at all.
Yeah, all of that illustrated by a pretty significant win rate drop in solo queue. You would expect some of that to translate over to pro play. Let's talk as well, though, about Ryze. Received a few changes, and he is a very popular pick here on the LCS stage.
Yeah, and the changes were nerfs for sure, but it didn't seem to really impact his win rate in solo queue. It might matter more in competitive. They removed a lot of his kind of extra utility. So his W rank, without putting any charges on people, will just slow them. So you actually need to press E first. His Q doesn't give him a shield if there's 2 rune stacks that you have. His E spreads more easily now, though, so you will be able to get more spreads on people and Q more. They also put more mana ratio on his W, so there was a whole host of changes, but mechanically the big ones are the root not being guaranteed. It might be a slow if you don't put the charge on it, and no shield.
And actually, what I really liked about Ryze before he got changed was that a lot of teams were playing Yasuo Gragas into it because you can just drop the wind wall in front of the Ryze, making him pretty much useless in a team fight. So Cloud9 last week was running this composition twice. It's really strong, and even though Ryze might not be seen so much now, I think that the teams have still latched onto Yasuo Gragas as a very powerful engage tool. If you're struggling with engage, you don't need to go Sejuani. Gragas and Yasuo can do the job. And just yesterday in the Academy, we saw Karma permaband, no Ryze, no Sylas, and the occasional hint at Yasuo's.
Cloud9 played that Yasuo Gragas comp with both junglers last week. It was Blabber who debuted it, though, here on the LCS stage. He's back in the lineup today. Wouldn't necessarily be surprised if it continues to rise in priority to some degree. Of course, you can see on the back wall behind Mark, Yuumi did receive a few nerfs as well. Less impactful to some degree, but we'll see how those might affect her priority within Champions Select. Before we check out our analyst predictions, we want to call upon an old friend to make their prediction for the LCS Summer Champion. Take a look.
Let me teach you a thing or two about the curse of 4. Our tale begins in the LCS. And for you see, Team Liquid wasn't always an LCS team, no. They were not an original team. What they did a bargain, a deal with Team Curse, an original member. And in exchange for their LCS pot, they were cursed. They were blighted by endless misery of 4th place. 4th place everywhere, 4th place in the standings, 4th place in international tournaments, 4 limbs in each player. Coincidence? I think not. But after millennia, Steve has finally figured out how to reverse that curse. And the answer was endless investment and sacrifice into the bank account. And now Steve is set to reverse that curse. From fourth misery to fourth victory everywhere. They are now set to win 4 LCS titles back-to-back, the 4-peat, and just like an old man reversing out of the driveway without looking at his rearview mirror, there is nothing that can stop him. And how do I know this? I was on Team Chris.
What was that ending?
What just happened?
I was gonna say, the history's a little jumbled in my brain watching it, because I was like, the fourth curse existed before they got bought by Team Liquid.
That's his point. Team Curse
it was
the
a
cursed
curse.
team.
They inherited the curse.
You inherited it, but like, I don't know, it sounded weird, but it sounded like you're saying that Team Liquid got the curse because
Steve
they bought
invested so deeply into the curse that eventually he invested himself out of the fourth place hole.
I was counting on no one fact check.
The fourth place championship. Oh, we were listening too closely, apparently. Well, with the Prophet's words spoken, let's take a look at your predictions for the day. A lot of battles for first, as we've mentioned.
Ooh.
And there is perfect alignment across
Resident
Crumb's,
Sleeper.
Marks, and StatSpot's predictions.
I'm in first place.
You are
There
in
you
first
go.
place. That's true.
The problem with today is like a lot of the close matches ended up having a lot of roster swaps in them. So like TSM Optic was one that I was really going back and forth on. But then when I hear that unfortunately Crown, the superstar for Optic, isn't playing, it's like, well, that suddenly becomes a lot easier to vote on.
Right.
TL Golden Guardians is probably the closest one after some of these changes have gone through. Fox Clutch was another one where like if Fox was firing on cylinders, great, that would be close, but they made another swap.
Yeah, another swap.
I think to a degree, though, there's also there's that element of the sure things, the status quo that we spoke about earlier.
Oh, I'm
right?
sure one of these is wrong.
Right, yeah, but Team Liquid, TSM C9, just based on their history within the league, it's a lot easier, in those close matchups for first place to land on one of those squads as opposed to one of the orgs trying to do it for the first time.
It's like the magic in the position. You see it and you're like, is it one of the old guard team, one of the ones that's doing really well? It's like, yeah, all right, we'll favor them in this one.
I mean, to be fair as well, every finals for like the last year has had those teams in them. It was C9 2 ago, and it was also TSM in the most recent one. So,
right.
And then Team Liquid in all of them. So it kind of starts to feel hard to bet against these teams who have so much success.
Without a doubt. Returning our attention to game one of the day, though, let's get some win conditions up on the board. Starting with you, Crumbs, Team Liquid, how do they do it?
All right, so the first thing that I want to address for Team Liquid is that because they're playing on the new patch, they can't make any crazy patch shenanigans, just like last spring where they tried that Yorick first pick because suddenly they heard that Yorick top was the greatest thing in the world. They need to calm down and just play what they know works. And on top of that, keep Doublelift playing an actual champion he can play in the bottom lane. None of these shenanigans that are happening around the world with Pyke Yumi, Pyke Karma bottom lane. Like, yes, these are great compositions, but for them to execute it, it's not the team to do so. And the last thing, Bantam Kench, please. You
That
know
should be
it.
number one.
You know it deep in your heart. Put your ego aside, ban TK.
Ban TK. All right, for the side of Golden Guardians, Mark Z, how do they snag first place?
For me, it's give Froggen the priority pick in the draft, whether that means first picking the most powerful thing left up or giving him counter pick to go against something else.
Okay.
Give him the choice. Let him be the kind of focal point of your team comp, and then protect bot lane. I'm expecting a Tom Kench ban, and then I expect that means that Doublelift and Core JJ will then be the better 2v2, but I want to make sure they don't get blown open with attention from Smithy, so make sure Contracts is giving a little extra attention down to the bot lane to try and keep them in check.
And talking about that bot lane, I was a little surprised to hear Doublelift talking about definitely being the ADC other than himself that he believes exerts the most pressure within the lane phase.
I think the confusion was we were hearing Doublelift not trash talking.
Right. That's what was in compute,
like, wait a
right?
minute, what?
Something doesn't make sense here. Either way, we are heading into our first game of the day, so let's toss it out to the battle arena to get into Champ Select.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. In case you all missed our check-in earlier, I am Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by Sam Kobe Hartman Kensler, and we are going to be bringing you the first couple of games today, back-to-back battles for first place. That happens in a league where you got 6 teams tied at the top.
Yeah, there is quite the tie at the top of the North American LCS. We have a bunch of winners in our league.
Oh, yeah. We got so many winners. Over half the league is winners at this point in time. But unfortunately, 2 of those are going to be knocked down a peg here after these first couple of games. Golden Guardians and Team Liquid. Golden Guardians off to their best split start ever so far.
Yeah, what an exciting split it has been for the Golden Guardians. This team has put a lot of time into building up, for this summer performance, and they have goals to make Worlds. So this is not a team that is just looking to make playoffs, and make a decent North American performance. They also have goals towards international success, much like Team Liquid, who were built for this, who are built to go to international tournaments, and are basically expecting to go there. However, as you said, with 6 teams tied for first, even Team Liquid's spot is not guaranteed.
Everybody's got a shot at making this one happen. And this is summer, right? Like last split, there was a lot of conversation about, hey, it's spring. A lot of teams are focusing on building up, getting ready, building that synergy. Summer's the time where you really got to put your money where your mouth is and step up, or you're going to be going home. And for Golden Guardians, you couldn't ask for a better time to be popping off like they are. Yeah, they've had a couple of losses here and there, but just the improvement that we've seen in this team, the way they communicate, the way they play together, really good. And they're going to need it up against Team Liquid, who showed, like you said, this is a team that was put together for that top level success. Taking down the world champs at MSI, definitely successful, and this isn't a team you can sleep on.
Yep, 3 back-to-back-to-back North American LCS championships.